Matt Dasmolchi. My handle on TikTok is Meet the Media, and you can also find me at Meet the Media 2.0. So that's me. Real quick, so let's dive into the anger.
Yeah.
All right, man. So as you were kind of saying, right, kind of you find it personally kind of funny with obviously the rage there. The rage is clear and intended, I think valid, right? I think we all agree on that. Or at least most of us, I hope, agree on that, right? But yeah, people who know me have always said, dude, you kind of have a way of being kind of funny when you say things, even when you're pissed. And so it's just kind of there, I guess. Some see it, some don't. So
were you funny like in high school, the class clown funny, or you just the anger brings out the funny?
Not class clown so much as just always have a sarcastic comment at hand to give you. Right. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate. Look, I am like an angry person too, you know what I mean? So I relate. I am not as, for some reason, I don't get as much, like, yeah, they'll take down posts of mine for sure, because I think even the most innocent person gets their post taken down.
100%.
But I don't have trolls following me, not would yet, or have been. And when the minute I see somebody say something remotely that isn't like in keeping with my mindset, I block and delete. And then I'm gonna look at, and then I looked at some people of theirs and just delete and just block, just like an advanced
preemptive strike
avoidance, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I know that was an issue for you when we talked briefly through text, that you're trying to figure out how to handle this, you know?
Yeah, and I think that was good advice. So I actually started doing that immediately in the backup because they'd already kind of infiltrated some of them early on in that. And so I was like, all right, we got to start taking your advice on that. And so to your point, if it's like disagreements, fine, you know, even kind of a funny, you know, negative comments, fine. But to your point, there's kind of like little signals. You're like, that's nasty.
I believe we had a real big impact on Georgia. I really think that the TikTok community was really young and old and both, and white and black and allies, and it was like
super diverse
democracy.
This really beautiful, diverse coalition.
It was like democracy. It was what this country is.
Dude, so let me tell you about one of my favorite, because I think this pivots to a really good experience that I had, but I think it's kind of significant. It does kind of drive a lot of this. So in 2018, Paris, the annual rally that we held, it's with the NCRI, the National Council for Resistance of Iran, every year holds like a lot of different demonstrations, but the biggest rally is the Free Iran Rally. And it was held in 2018 Paris. And dude, same thing, like tens of thousands of people, all ages, lots of different nationalities, ethnicities, religious views, you know, like, and it was just beautiful because everyone's just there promoting democracy, you know, like freedom, like true secularism, you know, like just like, you know, and it's like true coalition of the people, right? Like across classes, all divisions are just broken and shattered. And then there was actually a recent court case where an Iranian diplomat with 3 others, they tried to bomb that event actually. And that, yeah.
In Paris?
Yes. So Iranian diplomat who'd been based in Vienna since 2014. So, and this is how the regime operates. So that's why, so my dad's from Iran. So that's kind of how I originally got like into politics and stuff, obviously from a young age, because my dad always remained active, even when he was forced to flee. So
you must wonder how this is going to work out with Iran, with Joe Biden, right?
Yeah.
Where are you feeling? How are you thinking? What do you and your dad speak about?
So I always give like the caveat, like that, like, you know, I'm just literally one person who's half Iranian with one perspective, you know, like take it for what it is.
But you couldn't have been happy with Trump.
So that's where people get like really perplexed, actually. I always want to kind of give the warning. This is not because Trump was a rational agent and was making like good calculated decisions as it relates to like foreign policy, right? No. This man's a hyper narcissist and they've been playing chicken. And when a narcissist runs into people playing chicken, the narcissist is going to win because they don't actually want that action, right? And so the playbook against Iran for 40 years, pretty much since the Islamic Revolution, the regime's come into play, has been, you know, you don't really want to mess with us. If you push us too far, we'll start a war, etc. And the kind of thing is, oh, they have a really strong military. And like, you know, well, the reality is, yeah, they do have a strong military, but they don't want any action with the US military. And if we really wanted to, we'd be there. Look, we're already in Iraq. We could have justified being in Iran. We don't really want to be there either, barring some war hawks like John Bolton, etc. Right? So the thing is, the best, and like I just mentioned, I talked about that diplomat and trying to bomb the event, right? The most important thing is, I think that kind of highlights that you can't really utilize diplomacy with them. It's like trying to utilize an election with Donald Trump. They're not going to respect the election, so they don't respect diplomacy. And the problem is the US doesn't have credibility given how we've impacted that country before, right? We've ended democratic movements ourselves. So you've got the really lacking in credibility US with the brutal, murderous regime, right? That respects no borders. If we weren't there, it'd be Saudi Arabia or Israel. It doesn't really matter to them. Whoever's in their way is going to get out of the way eventually. So if you can't use diplomacy, we don't want to go to war. What's the third option, which never gets talked about? The Iranian people. And so as much as it sucks, sanctions totally hurt the Iranian people because the regime, as they get less and less and less, right, in terms of economic output and ability, well, they just double down on foreign aggression, proxy war, state-sponsored terrorism. And of course, that hurts the people. But as the people get hurt more and more anger, more protests, more demonstrations, and eventually revolution. Yeah, it sucks. And I hate making the argument because I'm not there. I'm out here living my life. It's easy for me to say. So
there's so many Iranians that have come to California.
a ton, especially down south in LA, Bay Area.
They like good weather.
100%, 100%.
Money in politics does not work because if the politician gets pushed comes to shove, your agenda as the corporation means nothing. So either this is a teaching moment to say, okay, stop giving money. I mean, there's the same things going on in Texas. What happened in Georgia is now about to happen in Texas. And the government has to, the corporations have to just shut up and not give them money. You know what I mean? That's 100%. The first thing. If the corporation sees that they have an ally in the government to be whatever the they want and not pay taxes and drill and do whatever and consume and spill shit into the water, if that's a thing, you have to separate that. You have to separate. That's like an unhealthy allyship. You know what I mean? But what happened this week to me is the first sniff of how those two should not be in bed together.
You have 100%. So there's three bodies at play right there, right? You've got what I would call the collective people, the corporations, and then government. And the reality is the government should represent the people. These shouldn't even be, should be one. The problem is we think these are separate entities, right? It really should be people, government, really just this, and corporations, if they even exist. That's a debate we can have.
That's a dream. You're good. That'll be your next slide.
So here's the beauty of it. I'm not concerned. So I tell people always, that's always the response, right? And I tell people I'm wholeheartedly committed to this idea that I'm just putting down as big of a brick as I can on the path that we needed to go down. And I'm completely content with the idea that I won't be here for what I'm trying to accomplish. Right. But I'm we all die. We're all going to have that final breath. I can't really control that for the most part. So I'm thinking second death and legacy. So, and to your point, we can tilt the scale one way or the other. And I want to tilt the scale this way as best as I possibly can. Dude, 100%, there's times I walk down the road and I mess up. I found something. There's things in my past that I found and left worse. And I will always forever try to make that better going forward, right? And I'll try and do even less and less going forward. And I think I do it less and less going forward. But, I was lucky, man. I had a couple of parents just kind of wanted me to do things right. So I try to,
you have to live your life to, so you can look in the mirror, which is how, I don't know how these Trumpkins even own mirrors. Anyway,
I'm working with a few creators who the goal is to create an actual true left-wing outlet, and not just exclusive left-wing, but a true outlet where you have real conservative voices, not bullshit Republicans or bullshit Trumpers, right? True libertarians, not the bullshit half of them that are bigoted and just want to, trample on other people's rights in the name of their rights. True progressives, true liberals, right? True Marxists, the whole shebang, but a legitimate news source meant to inform and then offer healthy perspective. So
good luck, because I think we definitely need more avenues for information. There's no question. I miss the days. It sounds so corny and retrospective, but when newspapers, which nobody gets anymore, I don't know, but used to have the fireman took the cat out of the tree, those kind of human interest stories of just simple gestures of kindness that could like fall into whatever, but everything is so hyper like on the like junky red, like, oh man, let's go, you know. So, but good luck with that. I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting points of view. I've been invited twice to a conservative podcast guy that's in Connecticut that found me on TikTok, whatever. And he wanted to like have like a healthy conversation, which I'm happy to do. And I'm not always right. Just because I feel something doesn't mean it's right. But you know, it was interesting because he's really conservative, and we talked. He was like, the first thing he wanted to talk about was this whole transgender in sports, the kids in sports. And I said, okay, so here's the thing. It's a form of racism. It's a form of, you know, it's just like, if you didn't like Black people, you don't like trans people, you don't like Jews, then it's the same thing. You know, there isn't enough situations that you can say the girl is the trans is so much stronger. I said, what do you have? 3 people now have signed in for a sports team. You know what I mean? You don't have, there's no numbers to talk about.
You can have a realistic conversation about it anyways, all right? So like, let's have a realistic conversation. Okay, yeah, we'll grant your bigotry. Let's grant your bigotry and let's have a conversation about it, right? And so this problem isn't even a problem with kids to begin with, because boys and girls can play sports. I got my butt, I'm an athletic dude, I'm good at sports. I get my butt whooped by girls growing up. And even now I'll get my butt whooped by girls, like in certain sports, right? Like, because there's some badass women out there who are really good at what they do. Like, that's why it's like, some of these conversations kind of annoy me. Like when they like compare like the money, like with like WNBA and NBA, it's like, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, the women might even be more skilled, honestly, because like they're playing a more pure game. But let's be real, people want to watch high flying dunks, you know. So it's the product, it's just the product draws in more revenue, right? Whereas then we can point to like real areas with the wage gap, right? Because when it comes to like maternity leave, things like that, and pay and stuff like that, that's completely not like, you know, we don't have that conversation enough, and we point to kind of silly examples. Which is like,
even though if you take the sports in America, soccer, for the women to get the short end of the stick is like,
because that's national team. That's so wrong. Because that's exactly, there's a difference between private revenue versus national team. Like, that's so wrong, especially when you consider where the revenue comes from for the men. Dude, soccer is my sport. Oh God, this shit gets me heated up. Okay, so because the men aren't even good. They don't even make money. It's because they're involved with like Brazil and all those other big tournaments. The women's side are so good and they kick ass, and they actually make money for their own product themselves, not because they're attached to other good teams, and they get totally job. It's, yeah.
I mean, the other thing that's at this time in our culture now that we're all kind of bubbling together, like there's so much emotional like truth coming out from everybody, is that I think the women's movement, the gay rights movement, the civil rights movement needs a reboot. They all need, you know, women are not that much further along than they were in the 70s, small percentage. Gays, okay, they can get married, whatever, great. I'm married and it's no big shake. You know what I mean? But like, there's still the,
there's so many problems, especially because at the state level, because it's so easy to take a macro look, but we're just talking about down ballot. At the state level, pick a state in the South, and if you're a gay couple, a certain Christian-based adoption agency might be able to discriminate against you. So no, to your point, it's like, nah, man, like this shit's, we're not done yet. And
I just think everybody needs a reboot. I don't think I think especially women, like when the women were the most impacted from the pandemic, I mean, that's like, that sucks. And you know who's the real culprit? Hollywood. Ooh. How many more films like have 80% men in it? You know, there's the occasional chick flick, you know, which has found its way onto the small screen. But for the most part, it's all this, you know, if it's a Western, it's 90% men. If it's a war movie, it's 95% men. It's like all the bigger films. And that's like, that, you know, I think that's a huge thing.
100% representation, like what you see is going to like dictate what you think about and what you cater to, and like what's like first thought of as the default and norm. So, which is like a big thing, is just, 100,000%. Just the worst source out there, which is just usually outright disinformation, might even have a nugget of truth. And the best source out there is going to get things wrong, right? And so it's our job as consumers to understand it's not actually media anymore, right? Gatekeeper is now all of us. We all have access to information. We all kind of dictate what goes out there and what comes in and what gets shared. And so we don't take enough responsibility as our role as consumers in this process. And so I hope to also kind of give kind of the tools, right? So I've learned a lot about media and how to kind of evaluate sources and kind of check for credibility and things like that. And hopefully we can kind of share that with people and be like, yo, because to the point, there's this misconception, right, about like education. Oh, like school teaches you what to think. No, it doesn't. It teaches you how to think, right? It teaches you how to kind of critically evaluate things, how to break things down, how to evaluate arguments, how to check for, different rhetorical strategies, blah, blah, blah. So I'd like to just kind of make these things a little more accessible to people, because I found like, let's say you're at a bar pre-COVID, right? And you're having fun. The idea, everyone always thinks like, oh, like everyone's like wants to go out party, blah, blah. But like, dude, I'm telling you, man, like at a bar having drinks and you talk about this shit with people in an easily accessible way, away from all the noise, right? When it's just kind of one-on-one. And then like they enjoy it actually, right? They're afraid to talk about this shit a lot of the time because they're afraid of judgment. They're afraid to like be wrong, in front of other people and stuff like that. And so I just like to create a space where we can really have these conversations. And I think I've got a group of people I'm kind of finding that if we can get us on screen, we all kind of have these conversations, because we do have different ideas. If people can see that it's acceptable to kind of talk about these things again, and that we should be talking about these things, because the whole don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics thing, yeah, easy for the oppressor to say, right? They want that idea instilled in you because that's the default. Of course, they want you to question that shit or talk about that shit, because talking about that shit requires utilizing ideas, and ideas attack each other, and they don't want their ideas attacked. So,
Right.
On a real note, though, I just appreciate the opportunity. And if there's anything I can do to help out with anything you're doing, let me know.
No, I'm going to keep you posted. You're part of this crew, whether you like it or not. You've been.
Oh man, no escape, huh? Got you, man. Cool.
Nope. You'll see.
So, hey, good to talk to you, my man.
Take care.
Take care.